the most significant moments in history were paved by pioneers. See, that's our word for Valley Creek, and it's our word for our Hub family this year is the word pioneer. And we believe there's a special divine grace and favor on that word for us this year. See, pioneers are men and women they don't just settle with the status quo. They believe there's always more. See, your life is surrounded by things that people have pioneered for you. You have Henry Ford. He pioneered the automobile. And I know some of you guys love driving your cars. We have Lewis and Clark, who pioneered the West. We have Martin Luther King, who pioneered racial reconciliation. And then we have maybe the most important for you, and that's Evan Spiegel. Oh, you don't know who Evan Spiegel is? See, he pioneered Snapchat. It's something that takes up most of your day. There's a lot of pioneers that have affected your world and your life in every aspect. And then the most important, in all seriousness, is Jesus. See, Jesus pioneered our salvation. He came to save us, to heal us, and to make us whole. See, in Hebrews 2:10, it tells us, "For now he towers above all creation. All things exist through him and are for him. And that God made him a pioneer of our salvation, perfect through his sufferings." So that's him saying that Jesus came to get rid of all guilt, all shame, all sin, so we can have victory today. See, he did that for us so that way we can not just have hope for heaven someday, but we can live in an open heaven today. See, Scripture teaches us, when talking about Jesus, it says, as he is, so we are. So if it's true of who Jesus is, then it's also true of us. And Jesus was a pioneer. Jesus was a pioneer, which means that God created us to pioneer. See, it goes all the way back to the very beginning in Genesis. See, God created Adam, the very first man to ever exist on the earth, and he created him and he gave him this mandate. In Genesis 1:28, he says, "Be fruitful and multiply." It says, "Fill the earth, subdue it." So he tells Adam, be fruitful. Take everything into the fullness of what it's created to be. Multiply. Multiply my life into everything you come into contact with. Fill the earth. Go from the places that are known and comfortable and go to the unknown with me. Subdue things. To take things that are lost and broken and bring my hope and bring my restoration to those things. See, that was Adam's mandate, and that's also our mandate. And not just as a mandate, but it's who we're created to be. See, you were created to be a pioneer. You're like, well, how do I do that? You're created to be able to bring the fullness of the life of Jesus into your schools, into your family, into your job, into your situations, into everything that you're a part of. Does that mark you? Do you bring the fullness of God into everything that you have as a pioneer? See, God created you that way. He created you to walk on water and to kill giants. He created you to blaze new trails. He created you to be able to walk with God into the unknown. See, that's what a pioneer is. A pioneer walks with God into the unknown for the good of others and the glory of God. That's what he invites you to. That's what he invites us to. And if I'm honest, if we're honest, a lot of times we don't walk like a pioneer. We don't act like a pioneer. So the question is why? It reminds me of a story of the Israelites. You may remember the Israelites. They're God's chosen people. And God had done a lot of incredible things for the Israelite people. And he tells them, hey, well, I'm going to take you to a place called the Promised Land. It's everything you could ask, hope, dream, or imagine. I'm going to take you there and it's going to be amazing. All you have to do is subdue it. And so they got together 12 spies. And 12 spies, they get together and they go and they look at the Promised Land, and it's true. It's everything they could ask, hope, dream, or imagine. It's wonderful. But they came back, and not only did they give that report, they also gave one more. They said the land is filled with giants. It's filled with giants, and we are like mere grasshoppers compared to those giants. There's no way we can take the land. God had promised them, this is your land. And they said, no, there's no way that we can do it. They let fear stop them from taking their destiny. See, God wanted them to fight the giants then so that way the next generation could live in peace. But they said, no, we're okay in the comfortable nature of where we are now. We're not going to go. And so you have an entire country, entire people group that wanders in the wilderness, that wanders in the desert for 40 years until an entire generation dies and misses out on the promised land. See, there's times that God will put giants in our life so we fight them so we can fight the biggest giant that we have today. That's the giant in our mind. See, for the Israelites, the giant they were to really fight, it wasn't a big deal that there were giants in the land. The true giant that kept them from walking to the promised land was the one that's in their mind. It was their fear. It was their doubt, their apathy. They're not believing if God was really who he says he was. And oftentimes I believe that we have voices in our own life or in our own mind, and they are loud and they roar. The giants roar and they remind us that we have anxiety. There are giants like depression, like sin cycles, family history. We have giants that are in our lives that tell us that we can't become all that God's inviting us to. If I'm honest, I relate to the Israelites a lot. I've let the giants in my own mind tell me I'm not good enough, that I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable enough. Or that I'm just going to repeat the same history that all of my family did. Those are the giants in my life. We tend to give the roar of the giants in our mind a lot more credence than we ever do to the voice of God. All the while, God is saying, will you just listen to my whisper? See, the whisper of God is saying, I love you. You're righteous. And there is no giant that will stop you from your destiny. There is no giant that will stop you from walking into the promised land. See, Hub, I believe it's time for us to stop giving credit to the voices in our life, or the voices that are in our head that say that you can't do it, you're not good enough, and you never will be. Start listening to the voice of God that tells us that we are loved, we are righteous, and that he is with us. You're like, well, how do I really do that? How do I get rid of the giants in my own mind? Simply put, I don't know the giants in your life. I don't know the giants in your mind. But I know this. When you begin to walk with Jesus and say, I want to pioneer and go into the places of the unknown for the goodness of people and the glory of God, all of a sudden the voice of God becomes that much louder in your life, while the giants become that much quieter and quieter until they're no longer affecting you. See, in our world, it's really easy to want to listen to these, but God has something special for you today. See, in the group of the Israelites, when they sent out the spies, there was 2 guys, and they were pioneers, man. They believed that God was taking them to somewhere better than where they had been before. They believed that God was good and was going to take care of them. And because of it, there are these 2 guys named Joshua and Caleb. And let me just tell you their heart posture. In Numbers chapter 14:9, it says, do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because he will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. And so these 2, they have the confidence within God. And so they end up getting the opportunity to walk into the promised land with their families when the entire Israelite people group wasn't able to, because of the 10 that didn't want to pioneer. So they got to walk in the fullness of what they're called and created to do and where they're supposed to be. But what would it look like? What would it look like if we, as in Hub, across all of our campuses, were to say that we're going to be a people that pioneer? We're going to be a people that pioneer when it comes to Hub. We're going to be a people that when people come in and when they meet our doors, they're going to be met with love. They're going to be met with an environment that shows them that you are supposed to be here. That you are part of a family that's much, much bigger than what you could ever dream, hope, or imagine. How would Hub look different? I don't know what his invitation is to us specifically when those things, but I know he's going to give it to you. Or what would our schools look like? What would our schools look like if we no longer just said, that's just the way my school is? My school is always going to be that way. It's always going to have this brokenness, this hurt, this whatever thing in it. What would it look like if we chose to say, all right, God, I want to pioneer with you in my school this year. Instead of being affected by the environment, I want to be the change agent in my environment that brings the hope in the life of Jesus into classrooms, sporting events, and every aspect in between. What would that look like? What about your family? What if we no longer just said, this is the way my family's always going to be, and it's the history of my family? But what if we said, hey, let me pioneer with God. Let me pioneer with God to where I can be the first one to bring life into my family. I can bring the first one to bring hope into my family. I can be the first one in my family to stand on the finished work of Jesus and say, I'm going to walk with him all the days of my life for the good of others and the glory of God. Or what about us as a generation? What would it look like for us as a generation if we believed that we are called and created to pioneer? See, I believe that God is waiting for a generation that says, I'm willing to do the impossible for the good of others and the glory of God. See, I think God's waiting, saying, I want to give something that's huge to them. So this year, we're going to pioneer. We're going to do it together as a church, as Hub, and as individuals. And maybe you just don't know if you really feel like a pioneer. I get it. My encouragement to you is this. This year, lean in with us. And let's see all that God has called and created us to be and what he has for us. Because God created you to pioneer.
What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? Who is he that condemneth? Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or peril, or sword? Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord.